Okay, I'm now calling the Sherborn Conservation Commission meeting of June 1st to order with a roll call. Steve's here too. Okay, everybody's here. I guess I can't tell. I'll do a motion to open the meeting. I have a second.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Announce your name and your vote for the record. Michael Lesser, aye. Go around.
Jacob Strauss present.
Chris Stiegel present.
You have to say aye because I made it a motion.
Aye.
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 Courtney Eck, aye.
Matt O'Leary, aye.
Okay. Are there any agenda items that within the 48-hour rule that we need to maybe amend the agenda with?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, I don't think I've heard anything from Joyce. Okay, so it's 7:18. We have 2 minutes. But I guess I will I'll just let you know as an announcement that I'll send out a memo. I'm going to send out a couple of emails to everybody about how we organize the Conservation Commission, since June is a traditional time for that. So I have something drafted that I thought I sent out today, but didn't finish. That'll just be about how we set up with the chair and everything else like that. So we'll put it on our next meeting's agenda. As to how we're doing things. So that's just a little advance warning for a couple of emails that hopefully you can all read. And so, okay, we have 1 minute before I guess I think Dan is here. Joyce isn't here, but I think she's talked to. I think it's pretty straightforward RDA.
Maybe Dan wants to start
Well,
sharing the plan or something.
Well, you could start bringing it up while we're doing this. I'm going to say it's 7:20. And I'm going to do here, I'm going to read the notice.
Yeah, by the time you finish reading it, it'll be 7:20.
Okay. Notice hereby given that the Conservation Commission of the Town of Sherborn will hold a virtual public hearing using Zoom technology at 7:20 on the first day of June 2023. The RDA hearing will be held pursuant to Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws as amended, Wetlands Protection Act, and the Sherborn Wetlands Bylaw to consider a proposal by the applicant's representative, McIntyre Engineering, for soil testing for septic systems within a wetland buffer zone at 36 Ivy Lane, map 11, lot 15, 154D. This application is available for viewing at the Sherborn Conservation Office. All persons desiring to be heard will be given the opportunity to speak at this hearing.
Good
Okay,
evening.
take it away. I will go mute if I go to the other committee.
For the record, Dan McIntyre representing Janet and Jeff Gannon, owners of 36 Ivy Lane. They're being kind of proactive on their septic system in anticipation of selling the house in the future. It failed the Title V inspection, so they need a new one. We were retained to design a new septic system. When we went out to the site, we did notice what appeared to be a wetland right along the property line. It's being fed by the storm drainage system. There's an outlet right there. So we conservatively assumed it was a wetland, and we wanted to get permission from the commission to go out and do the test pits, which would be located in the backyard. They don't have a lot of room to work with. It's fairly tight backyard based on the placement of the well and the existing house. So we'll be test pitting in the lawn area in the backyard and replacing the system in that same area. We did have a Goddard consultant go out and take a look at this wetland. In fact, I just got their report late this afternoon. They've identified it as an isolated vegetated wetland, which actually isn't under the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act or the Sherborn bylaw. I'm having them double check that because I'm not sure. It might be an isolated land subject to flooding. So they're going back to double check that. But in any event, I think we'd like to get permission from the commission to at least do those test bits from now. And we'll be back with the design plan. One way or another, if it's not a regulated wetland, we'll let you know. If it is, we'll be back with a filing. The access will be not near the wetlands. There's no way to get to the backyard from that side of the house. So we'll be coming down the driveway side, which is up on the top side of the plan, and around the garage out to the backyard here. And with that, I can turn it over to questions.
Does anybody, I guess, do we have conditions? This, I guess
One-
I haven't looked at the,
Jacob, you have
Folder.
something up for the
Michael, I
committee?
had one question. Isn't it subject to the town bylaws, even if it's an isolated vegetated wetland?
right.
Yeah,
Well, that's why I asked Goddard to go back and check. I'm not sure if isolated wetlands is in the bylaw. Isolated land subject to flooding definitely is, but I'm not sure about an isolated wetland.
We don't distinguish between isolated and connected
yeah.
wetlands. They're all the same under our bylaw. So it is part of our bylaw.
Well, when you're talking about your regulation changes, you might want to clarify that.
Okay, let's say,
Thank you for the suggestion.
okay, point taken.
There's really nowhere else to put the system, and it's in failure, so that is not a good condition for protecting a wetland.
Well, okay, then do we have any, sorry, I was half listening. I don't see anything there. Are there any
testing-
conditions?
The
that we
testing
need- we
is all
need-
within the lawn, and I believe Joyce said that this isn't gonna need erosion control for the testing because it's up on the lawn away from the wetlands, and it's not sloped
Okay,
wetland or anything, is it? Not
No, it's very flat back there.
Yeah, and I think she had some pictures for us in the meeting folder. If
I didn't see any, but,
oh, well, she should have. I don't know where they are, but just if anybody, right? I do not see the
okay,
pictures.
so basically the
The
only
pictures
conditions.
did
that
not
we-
make it
Yeah,
unless they're in the file, the PDF.
yeah, I guess so. It's really just a matter of, there's
But
no
yeah,
con- other than the standard
yeah.
ones about no storage in the area there and restoring. things.
Right.
Okay,
Restoring pines, and then I believe our other, oh, there's a picture in the filing. It is in fact quite flat.
okay.
Anybody?
So we have the standard conditions about no storing or whatever else and of equipment and things. Okay, does anybody else have any questions about this?
And the only other condition we've been adding now is the post-construction inspection, right?
Right,
That's it.
okay, if needed, right?
Yep.
Okay. Then I move that we let this project go forward as a -3 with the conditions discussed.
Second,
Any further discussion?
we're
Roll-
not confirming the wetland, right? That's
Right, yeah, we don't do that anymore.
Not at this stage, no.
Yeah,
Not, but based on a green dotted line.
yeah, right.
Yeah, I
guess
just
we
want
can
to.
call it a positive 2B or whatever, the one that doesn't confirm. I'll amend
I
the
just,
motion.
I just wanted, like, I don't know if all the commissioners know what,
Right, we'll explicitly do it. I think it's a positive 2B, whatever the positive is, that it's not confirming the wetlands, we'll add, that's that. Can I get a second for that amendment to the,
second,
okay, any further discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, aye. Jacob,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Courtney,
aye.
Matt,
Aye.
okay.
Well,
Go
thank you
and
very
do the
much.
Testing, and we'll see you later when you get the system designed.
Yeah, we'll be back.
Okay.
Good
Uh,
night.
Good night.
Okay, so now we're up to. We have a moment here before it's 7:30, or we can just start the land management discussion. Why don't you take over, Courtney? As I will soon be disappear. Okay,
Well, I think Kelly's gonna take over, so
well, you take over, Jerry.
Okay.
You run it all.
Kelly, Sam, land management team, you have the floor.
Okay, and I welcome Sam Nelson, our chair. Sam, I thought I wanted to talk about the open space and recreation plan. And first, just to confirm, does everybody have the memo that I sent out in advance this time? I hope you do.
Yep.
I do.
Embarrassing 2 weeks ago that I didn't get it to you in time. Sam, I think you wanted to talk about something else. Sam?
We'll mute.
You're muted. I think we were just going to move right into the updating of the report.
Okay, I thought you wanted something about the plantings.
No, I think we got the budget last time. I've sent out a short list of plants, and as soon as I hear back from everyone, I will get back in touch with folks.
Okay. As discussed in the memo, there is a lot in the open space and recreation plan of considerable interest and value in just understanding Sherborn. And if nothing else, I hope all commissioners would look it over, get a little bit familiar with it, and appreciate some of the work that went into the maps and the background almost 7 years ago. This time is going to be a whole lot easier because we're not starting from scratch. We're just going to be upgrading, updating, making some amendments. For instance, today, I think we all got the new draft of the Climate Action and Resilience Plan, which, when that is finalized, will sort of be overlaid on the open space and recreation plan, and the recommendations in the OSRP will have to be amended and updated to reflect conclusions in the resilience plan. What I hoped to accomplish tonight was to get some commissioners interested in participating in this. Even if they don't raise a hand tonight, let me know, or one of the other team leaders know that they'd want to participate in the actual process of updating. I'm particularly involved in the diversity and open space protection part, which the Conservation Commission had a lot to do with. And almost immediately, we will be beginning going through the recommendations of the previous plan, making sure we know what's been accomplished, what hasn't been accomplished, what's definitely on the program for the next year or so, and get a clean slate that way to start with. Are there any questions about the plan or the process? this might be a fast discussion.
I still remember when we did the plan from scratch and all those meetings and who's getting assigned to what and the checklist. So
God, that
it's
was,
good that we're not starting from square one.
yes, that was years of intensive effort. But there will be a fair amount to do, and 4 different major sections. The resilience will be overlaid because it's got an impact on all 4. Okay.
Kelly, I'll probably be willing to jump in and help. Let's touch base offline in the next couple of days and figure out what the scope of the work is.
Awesome.
Matt, that's great. Any particular area or all of them?
Honestly, I'm going to need to educate. I mean, I've taken a look at your memo, and I've taken a look at the 2018 plan, and I'm going to just need to educate myself a little more about it. But we've already seen Jacob jump in and do a whole bunch of work, so I'm happy to be the next guy to do a little bit myself.
Matt, thank you
Awesome.
very much. I'll be away until Wednesday, but back to you as soon as I can.
Sounds good.
Thank you for volunteering.
Well, I'm not sure what I volunteered for yet.
Nope, but this is the first step.
All right.
I'm interested in being more involved too.
Steve.
Yeah.
And does anybody by any chance know a guy by the name of Kevin Stephenson, who in the trails survey that you all got, many of you filled out last year, there was a question of who would like to potentially volunteer to work with the Open Space Committee on this plan? And he chimed in just a week or 2 ago that he would. I can't find anybody who's ever heard of him. He volunteered for my section and also for the disability work with Nico Wiemeyer. So I'm very curious. Okay.
Yeah.
Sam, do you want to add anything?
No, I don't think so, except to return back to the garden plan. We hope that we will be planting that garden sometime this month. One of the things that we still want to talk about, we might want to bring back to you, we have not made a decision as a group yet, but just to let you know that we are potentially thinking about installing a rain barrel there at the barn. And that would make the watering much easier. But we also know that is an historic building, so that would be altering the building a little bit. So we are going to be talking about that as a group first, and then we will ask you for any kind of feedback and recommendations you might have as well. I think that's it.
Okay, you gave us until 8 o'clock. I think you got some extra time here, Courtney. No point in our staying on this.
All right. Thank you very much, Kelly.
Bye all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks.
All righty. I guess I better go back to the agenda. Dun, dun, dun.
I'm sort of temporarily back to right. We have you have the agenda there?
It doesn't, it didn't want to
With
open
the
it.
administrative approvals, and until Joyce is here, I don't know if we can do Western Ave, a certificate of compliance.
Sure. I mean, I also had one administrative approval. It was 20 Moores, and I had previously done an AA for the soil testing, so this is now the AA for replacement of the failed septic system. So that was approved. of jurisdiction.
And I get,
So then
Yes.
what,
yeah, I mean, do we have any others, Deborah?
well, I mean, there was two that Joyce did. 119, 121 Coolidge Street, that was a septic replacement, and 18 Wood Road, that's another septic replacement. And those were both out of jurisdiction. What about this request for COC? Should we do that?
I think we need Joyce here unless,
Okay, we need Joyce for that one.
unless Deborah knows enough.
Um,
A minute.
Whoops.
Hold on.
I'm gonna,
Yeah, I just want to say on the AA, 18 Wood Road septic replacement also was approved by Joyce. I don't see anything that came my way on approving 119, 121 Coolidge.
oh, I thought she sent that one, but I could have imagined it.
I know 18 came through.
Yeah, no, she approved 119,
Okay,
121 Coolidge. She sent that to Ellen on Sunday.
okay, so they were all done.
Those are all set. Boop, doop, doo. I don't think we have any minutes for this meeting, since Michael has vanished. I don't see any in the folder. And honestly, we can't start the hearing until 8. Deborah, is there anything, do we have a warrant?
We do not have a warrant, no.
Wow.
Yeah.
right,
And I do think we might need Joyce for that.
For the
21
COC.
Western Ave.
Okay.
When Michael
Right.
comes back, let's tell him that we finished the bylaw protection changes in his absence.
Right? Yeah, if only that wasn't a hearing, because man, we just changed the clock and I can text Joyce and see if she is coming soon. She's stuck in another meeting. But then otherwise, I guess we got nothing. We can come back at like maybe 5 minutes to 8.
Okay, see you then.
All right. Yeah. Thanks,
Second.
guys. Yeah. I think I can pause the recording till we get back. So. Got 4 minutes remaining. Joyce is definitely still hung up in the meeting. And Michael is still in select board, so now we have 3 minutes before we can officially continue the regulations, unless anyone has an appetite to try to discuss the document that was sent around. I think I could tell from Matt's expression what his opinion is, so.
I will say I did finally print it out, and it makes a big difference reading it, you know, as printed rather than just trying to scroll through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just one thing, I'm leaving very early tomorrow morning to go to San Francisco, so I'm not going to stay for all of the discussion about the.
Totally fine. Thanks for letting me know.
I already told Michael.
Oh, okay. We may not even get very far with any discussion. We'll see. I gotta find the thing for the Okay, it's 8 o'clock. I am going to reopen the hearing for our regulation revisions. Anyone have any comments or discussions that they'd like to have now? Or shall we kick this can down the road to the next meeting when Michael is present to discuss his document?
I mean, I'll just say I wasn't here at the last meeting. I see that this document contains some comments that I gave Michael prior to last meeting.
Yep.
But so I don't know, I guess just based on just like briefly, what did you guys do last meeting? And is it, I'm just curious where things stand exactly.
I know we did look at many of your comments. I think in his version, the things that we discussed at the last meeting are the things that he did in red. So like, I know we were going back and forth about what preponderance of credible evidence was versus just saying credible evidence. So, like that was edited out to just be credible evidence. I'm trying to think of the other major items. One of the big ones was, there's credible evidence that activities beyond 100 feet of the wetlands may have significant impact. So just, and that's to kind of explain the background of being protective of the first 100 feet, because in reality, the effects can go even beyond that. 100 feet is really like a minimum. What else did we go?
One of the other areas that we spent a bunch of time, is it okay if I jump in, Courtney?
Please do.
One of the areas that we spent a while talking about was, do we need to describe in depth the difference between an inner buffer zone and an outer buffer zone, sort of special rules for the first 50 feet. And I'm not quite sure if we landed on a consensus as part of that discussion.
No, I agree. We didn't really land on a consensus because I think, we started talking ourselves down a road and ultimately came down to that question. Well, if we're doing all these things functionally, what's the difference? Are we going to protect the entire buffer zone the same way? And I think at that point it was late, and that's when we kind of continued the discussion.
Another one of the areas that we spent a while talking about is there was a statement in the preamble, and I don't see it in the most recent version, but the one that we reviewed for the last meeting, that said something of the form, the commission we won't permit new structures in lots created after the new version of this takes effect. And then comparing that to later on in the performance standards, it's actually more expansive statement in the work in undeveloped buffer zones. So there was question as to whether there's even a need for that, what's permitted in newly formed lots and versus not. And I not sure what to do about this, but I was thinking about it afterwards, and there might still be a reason for doing that, namely because telling the difference between what's undeveloped and previously developed buffer zones is never going to be very exact. It's always going to be a matter of opinion, regardless of what definitions we come up with. So we may still want to have some sort of statements that are less open for, or that are easier to evaluate, or simpler to evaluate rather.
Yeah, I think we were discussing quite a bit, how one would define undeveloped or unaltered, or, in such a way that it could be practical, and not have confusion, because it's like, you could go back pretty far. You could say, well, this whole place there were no trees here, like even just 50 years ago, there was way fewer trees. So it was all previously farmland. It's just a question of how you want to define it. Maybe in terms of like current conditions, is it a lawn versus, a landscaped area, but it does get into the whole, like, I mean, we've seen this in applications where there's like an area that was probably previously maintained, but then it was let go. And at what point is it considered no longer altered?
Yeah, those are going to be the tricky ones.
Right. So I think that's why we went down another discussion of just saying new lots and not taking into account whether it was altered or not. Which, I mean, I guess I kind of want to, I mean, I personally think like, well, if it's a lawn, or say it's a dirt horse paddock or something, it's like, I don't know, would we say, no, you can't put something there? I haven't figured out how we would define that. Michael, are you really back?
I'm really back. Where are you guys?
We were just reviewing, because Kurt wasn't here last time and we were looking at the document you sent. So we're just going over the things that we wrestled with at the last hearing.
Okay, and what are you up to on that? Because yeah, I had an idea of just sort of isolating a few issues, but okay, where are you up to, so I don't repeat anything or whatever?
Would you have a list that you wanted to discuss? We were just recapping things. We didn't come to any conclusion.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm not interrupting it. I guess I think the issues of, were you looking at the actual document? I guess I don't see anything shared.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't share it. I was looking at it on my own. Matt's got it printed.
What's that?
Matt's got it printed.
That's right. There he goes. And I'm sure it's.
Oh, how about I put it up really close?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Well, I could share my screen with the thing that I was going to try to figure out without going into wordsmithing, to try to highlight a few issues about that I think we were one of the major issues is on the presumption, the whole issue of how much we're going to distinguish between the 0 to 50 and the 50 to 100. I mean, our regs now presume that the 0 to 50, as in the wording here, I don't know, this is probably too, but basically we're putting much more of a heavy presumption on the applicant to overcome any possible adverse effects in the 0 to 50. And then, because we had this whole preamble of presumption that was sort of very general, I would like to keep and suggest that we keep a distinction about the 0 to 50 versus the 50 to 100. And maybe that would come up in these performance standards. I'm scrolling down because the issue is whether how we're going to have standards for work in the 0 to 50 versus, because last time the draft was around, from Matt was around whether it was undeveloped or developed buffer zone. I think that it's still useful to keep the 0 to 50 as an issue for us to talk about. That in the 0 to 50, we have a strong presumption that it's so close that we have a stronger presumption of that we have the basic presumption that it's going to cause an impact unless they can show otherwise. And that's whether it's developed or undeveloped.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think that the 0 to 50 should still be the most stringent. I feel like things can be done in the 50 to 100. Like that, I think there can be a lower bar. Maybe it's higher than what it is now, but I still think it's a lower bar than the 0 to 50. Or it's a different bar.
Right. And then, and I was when I started redoing this document, since I even put the one out there, was that the difference between managed and unmanaged, or developed and undeveloped, that you really just focus that on the outer buffer zone, the 50 to 100, where if it's undeveloped or unmanaged, then we have the stricter conditioning if it's unmanaged, even though I had questions about, since even the document I put there, I couldn't tell the difference between A and B, but that you could see here for A that the real meat of it, if it's undeveloped, is or unmanaged, that we generally don't allow work in that area, and that they would have to, that it's not actually a no alteration zone, but they would have to show that they can, that whatever they're doing is not going to cause any adverse effects, whether it's a combination of it's a minor activity or that they have enough certain kind of mitigation and restoration that would easily make it all for the better. And it really just comes down to having something as strong as maybe just A that's adjusted. And then, but if it's previously developed out of buffer zone, then we have a whole bunch of other kind of options here. That it's more, it's less restrictive.
I would be on board with that. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then, it's just a matter of, I mean, we're never going to have 100% clarity on what's developed versus undeveloped, altered versus unaltered, but I'm sure we can make it a lot more clear in terms of like the definition of like, this is unaltered buffer, therefore we're gonna treat it like the 0 to 50. We don't want anything new in there.
Well, we generally don't want it. I guess the question
Right.
is it's still a notch down in protection.
Sure. Yeah.
But that it's because I don't know what other people think of basically structuring our things, even though it needs to get cleaned up, but structuring it around the 0 to 50 has its own stringent thing, and then the 50 to 100 has performance standards or rules that vary depending on whether it's undeveloped or unmanaged at the moment versus already been developed.
I think it's pretty practical.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if it's undeveloped or let's say unaltered or whatever, there's a certain amount of function that's providing, and pretty much any new development would alter that buffer function. If it's already developed, then there's a certain level of, function that was lost. And I mean, in theory, they could overcome that with certain mitigation or whatnot and make changes to the level of development in that area. I don't know, but I think it makes sense.
that whole mitigation process that we always try to talk about.
Right.
Steve?
I'm just not totally clear on if we're mixing together previously developed or not, whatever, and the 50-foot inner 50 and outer 50. Are those two separate discussions or?
Well, I'm arguing that the 0 to 50, we don't make that distinction. We just want to, that we don't need to make that distinction in the 0 to 50. Because basically we're considering that something we want to change as little as possible, and if anything, get mitigation and less development there. That,
Michael,
yeah,
I'll just, why it seems like it's weakening the bylaws a little bit if you say, oh, we'll mess around a little bit with the outer 50, when the whole 100 may be kind of a small area.
Well, right. So currently the inner 50 is most strongly protected, and what we're thinking about now is extending more of those protections to the outer 50, but it seems like taking the temperature of the commission, we'd be more strict with the outer 50 if it's not already developed. If it's already developed, there's probably some leeway, to do further work in there, and the commission has the power to ask for more evidence or mitigation, various things during the process.
Now, let me ask you another question. Does that need to be written so that developers or property owners see that, or is it sort of just practices that we, for the Conservation Commission?
I think we have some of these things as practices already, and we need to codify that and make it more clear in the regulations, and also to standardize it, because sometimes the commission may lean a little more one way or the other, but I think we need to set it all down so that it's clear for everybody, the commission and applicants.
so to summarize, we're going to have 3 different zones or 3 different areas with slightly different rules. One of those will be the inner 50 feet, which will always be presumed significant and essentially no alterations unless the applicant demonstrates that they've overcome the burdens of showing that it won't be significant. Then there's going to be the outer 50 in undeveloped areas, which is essentially the same assumptions as the inner 50 feet. And then there's going to be the outer 50 feet in previously developed areas, which is going to be more permissive in burden of proof kind of viewpoint. Is that a reasonable summary?
I think so.
yeah, I think so. I mean, we're still going to need to have, you're still going to need evidence that whatever they're doing in any of them is not going to damage the wetland. It's just that the hurdles to overcome will be a little bit lower depending on that hierarchy of those 3, that we might ask for less information. We might hold it to a stricter standard there. But yes, otherwise that, just to get that, because that's different from what the draft was before. So, I've started reworking it so that we can try to have those 3 layers in this draft on the screen. I didn't renumber it, but I do have the 0 to 50. And then I started relabeling that the outer ones were in these other undeveloped and previous developed are just limited to the outer buffer zone. He goes on, he had some stuff for exemptions, which I would suggest that we drop, because we already have those exemptions covered in a different section.
Yeah.
And we could just refine it. There's some refining that we could do based on some wording here. And then there's interesting issues here at the end where there's some extra caveats here about giving us some leeway. Because part of what we often do, and this just makes it explicit in 5.2 2.4.4, is that what we've always been doing in practice? Is people can do some things, but if they come up with enough mitigation and restoration that leads to a net benefit in terms of protecting the wetlands, all the power to them. They can come up with something. We want to be able to just encourage that kind of behavior and support it so that they can do what they want to do, and at the same time be creative in doing some other mitigation stuff. Which is some of the wording in that 0.4 area there. And I mean, that overlaps with 0.5 too, which is kind of obvious. That again, it's the same thing, that we're coming out with a net benefit to the wetlands. Whatever. So I think what I can do is sort of clean up this wording for our next meeting a little bit. It has a different structure because I have to think about, I mean, another issue is, so we have that general principle there. It's this whole issue of information collection and burden of proof. I think we struggled with whether it's going to be in the regs, whether it's going to be a checklist that's attached to the regs. I think we can have some, what we have is a section that we've never focused on in our regs in sections, as I note here, 7.4, 0.5 and 6, and maybe a new 7, where we list the kind of information that we might ask for in notice of intent. So all that other kind of list of issues that we have to work on, we can put it in there, and we already have wording there that we can expand on, where we could say, depending on the scope and the scale of the project, the mission may require this kind of additional information. That's the thing that I think will be a little bit, I don't know how to get more precise about that, other than to, it's somewhat of a case-by-case basis. And I think we're all just want to be practical, that we don't want to overdo the work requirements, but we want to have the ability to ask for certain things that we've been talking about as needed. And so we can put that in a section 7 that I'll try to see if I can merge some of that, all that stuff in there. And there is another issue of this thing of which overlap. We had that issue of here, new lots created. That people could see this thing on the screen here. I can't tell if we need to say, I can't tell if we need it anymore.
Michael, one thing I mentioned before you got here is, and I'm not sure whether I have an opinion about this, but one reason we might want to do this would be if there's uncertainty around whether an existing or where the boundary between managed or unmanaged lies, and whether that means a new structure would be permitted. If this would make it clear that the managed versus unmanaged doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, that's a good
for
point.
newly constructed, because when that boundary is never going to be precise or
Right.
exact.
No, I see what you mean. That's a good point. I could see how, whether, I mean, we don't have to do the full 100 feet even, but I see that point about, because the next thing after this issue is I wanted to bring up is what can we say about what's developed versus undeveloped?
So,
or managed or
I have a question about the new lot section. So who's the audience for this part of the bylaw? Because are we talking to a developer or another town board who may be approving a subdivision or an A&R? I'm just wondering what I mean, we're sort of saying like aspirational, but what, like practically, what is this part of the bylaw? Is it just sort of a mission statement, just something we're trying to put out there for people to?
No, I think it's pretty specific. I think it has real muscle in the sense of it's not to the other boards, it's really to developers or homeowners who are going to create new lots. Because they can create new lots subject to all the other conditions. It's just that when they come to us with a notice of intent to actually do something, we don't want them to be surprised. We want to be clear what it is they would face when they come to get a permit from the commission.
But would the lot not have already been created at the point in which they come to us to do something on it?
Well, hopefully they're thinking ahead. But right, it's to basically give them that they see what they're going to confront when they confront a lot, just like they have to look at all the rules or as setbacks and other kind of stuff. And this for the planning board, they should just know that there's a wetlands thing here. Now, whether the problem is part of is whether, as we see in the edits here in our last meeting, is how rigid are we going to be about this? Because it's hard to ever be absolute. Like, I mean, a zoning bylaw, I don't know, I guess you can get a zoning variance. If you say you want to go through a setback, but I don't know if you can get variances for new lots. It's like you get a lot of variance for existing stuff, but generally you don't get variances for new developments and whatever. Question is how much do we want to make this? I'm not sure. I always feel a little nervous about making things rigid. But that's part of for us to discuss whether, because last time we were adding the word generally, as you see. And whether means that it has no muscle or we shouldn't have that word. I don't know.
So would it be worth flagging this for the planning board and getting their input before we put this in our bylaw to see if they want, to see how they would react to this type of sort of, because wouldn't this impact their ability?
I don't think so.
No,
It would just impact the ability of somebody to put up a structure. But it might influence them if somebody comes to them with a whole plan of
Right.
housing, whatever. We'd certainly have to let them know
And-
that, oops, they're putting something in a place that we don't allow. So yes, I agree. We would certainly go over this with the planning board. The question is how far do we want to go? I mean, other towns have this to some extent. I mean, this is not groundbreaking.
Right. But could there be an issue there where the planning board wants to approve a project and they think it's a great project, but then this sort of stands in conflict to what the developer would be doing? So that, you know what I mean? Could there be some conflict there between our bylaw and what the planning board wants to approve?
Absolutely.
And
Right.
that could come up with our bylaw without these regulation changes or even the state laws generally. You know what I mean?
I mean, we might have to just make it generally, because maybe we don't have the legal standing to prohibit.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if it could be challenged if a property owner wants to build something and they have planning board approval and the planning board goes ahead and approves it, and then they come to us and we say, oh, whoa, you can't build that. I don't. And we might not care, but this is just what I was thinking about.
No, we do. I mean, I think it is an issue of whether we generally or strictly, how well do you word it shy of a prohibition, or whether that once you put any qualifier in there.
Craig, couldn't that concern happen already under all the current regulations?
Yeah.
Somebody could want to alter a wetland in a development plan, and we would strongly. But we don't say anything. Nothing in our I think nothing in our regs absolutely prohibits anything.
Yeah.
There's all a matter of significant impact. We could say no and not give them a permit. I mean, and they can always appeal it. But so maybe, I guess it'd be interesting to see the wording like in Dover. I think they have a 70-foot one. If I guess we could look at the wording of another town's.
So is this, I mean, I don't know if I'm just getting confused at this point because that happens. So is this going to, do we really need to apply this to just new lots, or does this kind of already fit in with what we're saying about altered versus unaltered?
Well, but Jacob was saying that this would apply, this would cut across, like we talked about those three categories before, of 0 to 50, 50 to 100 managed, 0 to 50, 50 to 100 undeveloped. This
But
would cut across two of them.
but
The
does
reason
it,
you might want to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead and explain it to me and see if we'll see if we
The-
get
the-
questions.
The reason we might want to say this, and I think if we were going to say it, we would want it without the generally. We would still have that exemption later on that says if we change our mind, we can change our mind. But we would want this as a clarification to developers to say, essentially say, if you are going to sort of create a new lot, you have to make sure that none of your plans are within 100 feet of a wetland, because that's much easier to actually measure. Whereas if you wanted to try and figure out, if you wanted to try and predict, is this structure going to be permitted? Otherwise, you'd have to understand where is the boundary between previously developed and not previously developed. That's much harder to predict.
Yeah. All right. I guess I see what you're, yeah.
I'm going to show you something else.
Somebody already has an existing lot, then we have to decide, is it developed or not developed?
Yes, and I think that makes sense. I think if you
Okay.
have an existing lot, an existing
Yeah.
homeowner, we're going to have, I think it would be unreasonable to do anything else other than try and figure out what makes sense given the current realities there.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just going to highlight this, something that I hadn't fully appreciated, that people should start reading section 7.4. Here's we have something that's in the no alteration zone, which I think will change all the wording to inner buffer zone. There's this interesting thing here where that, I mean, we came up with this hurdle here, which is quite high, that basically once you're above 5,000 square feet of alteration, which I guess I was surprised to read this. But this whole wording here in point number 4 about pushing people to come up with this mushy thing of reasonably practical alternatives. And then the idea that we don't consider them, if you have these self-imposed constraints, there's whatever. I just want to put this out here just to see what we have here and how much we want to even change some of this.
That last sentence is very strange.
The options that appear.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like it in a way because that's where you get into this kind of people say, well, I can't really do this because I need to have a backyard that's, like we've run into this before when we say, I need to have a backyard behind my house that's at least 20 feet or 50 feet wide. You get into some of these ideas that, okay, I can't build a house without a 50-foot wide backyard. It's to address those kind of issues, but right, it's not there's nothing easy about drawing this line.
All right.
And-
This is making me more confused. Like we've gone off in a different direction. I'm just struggling to keep up.
Okay, then well, let's just go back. I mean, it comes back to whether,
I just want to finish the things that you had on your list. We finally managed to get Joyce back. for her meeting. Hopefully she's still alive.
Let me get out of this thing, out of this share. God, where is my, oh, there it is. And I use two screens. I can't tell what shows up where.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm losing brain function rapidly. Kurt's eating his pen. So I just want to, I'm like, we had good discussion on the regs. So I just want to finish up the important stuff.
I guess it's this, where do we come down on this issue that we were just talking about then? About this new lots thing?
When Jacob explained it, it made sense to me.
Yeah, I think Jacob explained it succinctly, and I'm not opposed to having it in. I think it makes sense to have it in. I was just trying to better understand how
I don't,
So do
yeah,
we
I
want,
think it makes sense. I don't, I'm not sure where it belongs in the draft.
Yeah, I
So-
feel like this could be incorporated in a different way, in a better way. I just don't know how, but I think
I
we're
don't
all
think it's in the
aboard of this
preamble.
is
concept.
it on the screen? Is the screen being shared? Are you
Yep.
seeing
Yes.
it again?
Yeah.
The question is, are we gonna make it? That, are we gonna make it absolute in wherever we put it? That it's, and still have the other language that'll give us some leeway to do it, like we would drop the word generally and drop the word unmanaged. I could see dropping unmanaged.
Yeah, you should drop that. And I don't know about generally, because we do have, like Jacob said, we have don't we have that statement that,
We
Right,
have, yeah, we have the other.
yeah,
that
we
other
can
two
decide
languages.
otherwise.
right.
Clause.
That we never know what might happen. Somebody might propose something totally amazing that'll blow us away.
Well, the question is, do we put that here? Wherever we put this wording? Because we have these two sentences. Number of lots. In the case of lots created, no new structures will be built. Okay. Because here is sort of built on any such lot. Okay.
I ask a quick question, just does the word generally have a legal kind of connotation or nuance?
Well, it just means that it's not every time. It's not, now you guys made fun of me for using the term dispositive last time, but I like it just because it gives us a little bit of wiggle room. Like Courtney said, if something, amazing happens and blows our mind, that we're not stuck with saying no, and that we're allowed to make determinations on case by case basis, especially considering the fact that there is some of that in other places of this.
Okay, you convinced me.
Well, the question is, well, Jacob was arguing that at the end of this section, because this is going to get moved down to a performance standard. So it's going to move down where we're going to have those three categories of performance standards. And maybe that'll be one of the first. And then one of the other some of the other performance standards here is this 0.4 and 0.5 here at the bottom.
Yeah, I don't feel strongly about it. I think Matt's reasoning is convincing.
Although, Steve, if you don't like generally, you could say something
I'm
like,
not objecting to it.
no.
I just,
There's another way to say it though that's different. Like you could say, under ordinary circumstances or something.
Yeah,
along
let's
those
use
lines.
some,
Oh, I like that.
yeah, let's use lawyer speak. I like it.
Okay, Kurt and Matt have to the battle of the lawyer language and see whether
I don't think they're battling at all. I
I
think-
know what Kurt does. I'm going to lose that one.
well,
Yeah,
Matt,
we love this. We could go for hours. So,
Yeah, but then we'll have to send him a
Say
bill.
that. I can't go for hours.
okay, what am I putting here? Under ordinary, what is ordinary circumstances?
I
So-
mean, that's kind of mushy too, but it's,
But it's better than generally, I think.
well, probably. And I see where Steve's coming from. Asking what that, what does it mean? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good question.
Do we have any alternatives to stick in here at the moment? Just throw out some things. Well, just stick them in here.
In the normal course, under ordinary circumstances. Nothing else is coming to me right now, but
Those are both very good.
I think in the normal course is good because I mean, under ordinary circumstances, that begs the question, what are ordinary circumstances?
that's a good point.
In the normal course is sort of us signaling, this is what we're, prone to do. This is what we're probably going to do. This is what we often will do, but not necessarily always. So I think in the normal course is good.
Yeah, you convinced me.
We got a winner. We'll see if that holds up when we look at it, read it again. Okay, so now we have, so the question, I'll have to see, these two sentences here seem to say the same thing, really. But we'll see. I'll just stick them both in there for now.
Yeah.
And
You're missing a "the" in there, Michael.
in the right, oh geez, how can I mess up?
That's okay. We don't need to like fully
Okay.
wordsmith it.
Okay,
Michael
this is gonna apply to,
on that horrible task.
and we're gonna keep it at the 200 feet of a riverfront too.
Yeah,
The
that's
inner river, inner
pretty
riparian zone. Okay,
consistent.
okay. Fine, so we're dropping this. Okay, so this will be stuck down under the performance standards. So the last issue then for tonight's, while we have any wits left before we get to Joyce and the order of condition, the COC, is how much do we need to define and how do we deal with developed versus undeveloped, currently managed versus unmanaged, or whether we use both words, or whether, I don't know, whether, and Joyce, maybe you've seen some stuff elsewhere. And whether we, whether I gotta push Matt Byrne.
Why don't you push Matt Byrne on that? Like that's, or unless we're like tapped out on what we paid him.
No, we can, I think we could spend $100 on that one. Yeah.
I think that's a
referring to
worthwhile
like,
endeavor.
are you referring to like redevelopment? Is that what you mean? Like under the Rivers Protection Act, you can do a certain amount if it's already been previously developed?
Well, we're trying
No,
to
no,
distinguish between the buffer zone. Oh, sorry, go on.
But we want to define, like, is this an already altered buffered zone? You've seen how this gets confusing where they're like, well, it was mowed up until 10 years ago and now it's like overgrown and shrub. Like where are we gonna?
There are criteria under DEP for what's, because they have something called redevelopment.
See, this is a
Meaning
good
that
starting point.
It's sometime in the past history, it has to have been utilized, and that means that there are conditions on the ground, whether there's no topsoil or something. And it's kind of broad, but it's not broad, it's very defined as far as what stands for previously developed.
That's all under the riverfront.
It is, but I mean, that sounds like it's kind of what you're trying to go for.
And this is starting to like remind me that Matt may have brought this up already or mentioned it. So it would be a good, maybe to go back to him. I bet he already has some of this stuff. I swear he brought this up, like the criteria, modifying them or using them, taking from riverfront or wherever else he's looked at.
Yeah, that was the criteria. He was talking about the criteria of what percentage you could alter, but we, I think, wanted to be more strict. But no, I can go look into section 10.59 or whatever it is for riverfront and just sort of copy out the what the regs are at the state level.
Well, even if we don't use those exact ones, I think they
But
can
it's something to work on.
direction to head in. Yeah.
Okay, then we don't need to talk about it anymore. Let's get some working stuff from there.
So,
So should I consider this
can you?
enough done for tonight?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
I have a question. Did we come to a conclusion on the inner, outer, developed, undeveloped? Do we go with Jacob's wording or where do we come to a conclusion on that, I guess?
you mean on the new lots?
No, before that, we're talking about inner and outer buffers and
Yeah,
development.
we're having three categories. We're having 0 to 50. Then we're having 50 to 100 that's undeveloped, and then we're having 50 to 100 that's developed. And we'll have different performance standards for each of those three categories. I mean, it's really a lot the same. It's just that we want to make clear that we'll have some different levels of requirement of information and the burden of credible evidence that it's not going to do a significant adverse impact. But we're going to try to work with those three categories.
Okay, just, I remain unconvinced on the distinction between the two, but I can live with the Jacobs wording. So that's just.
Well, we'll find
I-
out, we'll revisit this when we figure out
Yeah.
if we can define, redevelop.
Right.
But to the point, your point, Steve, all we have to do is figure out how we can distinguish the two and then
Yeah.
come back to that issue.
That's in the next episode.
Yes, stay tuned.
But stay
Okay.
tuned until when? When are we continuing this to?
Yes, we're doing this. What do we have at our next meeting? I saw there was an NOI. What hearings it's always good to start with this one earlier because we could always continue it later in the meeting.
Yeah.
So we sort of, we might do it differently than we did it tonight. Tonight, we didn't do it that way. So that we had that gap. But,
So we have an NOI that's on the next agenda that is in Riverfront and in its previously disturbed area. It's adjacent to a house. It's building a deck. In the past, you have walked notices of intent. This might be one. This applicant has filed his own notice of intent. He's using a plan from previous work, very previous work. And in his, he has no representative doing it. So it might be helpful for people to actually see the property if we can arrange a site visit.
I think we should do it. I remember this one. We talked
Yeah.
about this deck a long time ago. I
We-
guess.
We
already
talked
went
about
through
his
it.
need for permitting, yes.
Well, you might have, I had a long discussion with him and I wrote out a how-to on filing a notice of intent, which he has followed through the letter. For
Yeah,
the most part.
nice. That's a good how-to. We should put that on our,
Well,
we should all read that one and see what we think of it. Okay, so the question is, that's gonna take a little bit of time, maybe, although I think it's basically just in lawn. It's just that it's very close to the wetland.
it's just very close, that's all. And I think, even just half an
Again,
hour of discussion would probably be suitable.
Does he have any mitigation proposed for? any of
We're
this?
not discussing it tonight.
I'm just trying to see how close he is
Yeah,
to.
but we
No,
don't,
no. So yeah, I would say a half an hour would probably be suitable. And it
Okay.
doesn't have to be first thing. Do you, I wasn't here, so do you have land management next time?
Yeah, well, do we?
they talked for 5 minutes and then they left. So I don't
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't hear a request to come back.
know.
All right.
I
So
think we're okay.
do you
So we
want
can move this thing till 7:20 next time. And put
Sure.
the NOI at put the NOI at 8 o'clock or something. And we could always, if we still have more energy, we can revisit it after the NOI. Does that make sense to folks?
It seems reasonable.
I'm assuming everybody's silence is compliance. Okay, so
Wait, Deborah, what about that? Didn't we get a request for a COC that I'm supposed to handle?
I'll put it under discussion.
Okay, thank you.
okay, so for the sake of this, before we move on to the last item with Joyce on a current COC issue, I move that we continue this hearing to 7:20 on June 15th.
Seconded.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, I. Kurt,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Matt,
I,
Steve,
Aye.
Jacob.
Aye.
Okay, Joyce, have the floor. Let's get, I think, our last agenda item maybe.
So this is an order,
Michael, can you stop sharing?
Oh, sorry.
This is a request for a certificate of compliance that had been issued by the commission back in signed and issued back in 2016 for 21 Western Ave. And it was signed back then, and it's been in the file. I don't know where it went. I don't know, we don't know that much about it, except that it's for this project, and it's signed and completed. It just never got recorded. Now, whether it was issued, and I thought back then that you all were recording things. Maybe you didn't, maybe you weren't at that point.
There was a period when we weren't doing it, and then we started doing it because we're finding.
Okay, so it's very possible that this was it started out as a septic repair. They added a few things to it. It's been a few years since it's been in place, and I don't see anything exciting out there. And again, whatever you did in 2016, you approved it. So we're looking to basically have you sign a new certificate of compliance.
Or can we just file this one? Record this one?
I don't have original signature.
Ew. Oh, the original documents aren't even around. Okay. If the original documents are not in the file, I guess, is what you're saying.
I think it probably was issued and just never, they never, either never.
Oh, that we might have given it to them and who knows, right?
Oh,
where-
yeah. I think there was a period of that.
Sometimes people don't know to record it. Maybe they, the property got sold and no one know what to do with it. A lot of people don't know what to do with things, like this when they're finished. They just figured they're just done.
There was a period many years ago. In fact, I have a note that I think I might still have my order of condition, my COC to file somewhere that I've never done it. From probably 20 years ago. But
Well,
okay.
lessons learned tonight.
Yes, okay, so you went by there and it seemed like it's in compliance. I mean, I
It's
guess,
hard to tell. It all looks fine. It
as
all
long
looks-
as it's just that it doesn't have the conditions of perpetuity, but I guess when we do it, let's just send them a little reminder of what they should be doing.
there were
And-
no conditions in perpetuity.
Yes, but I think it's worded as if that's the way they have to do it. We just didn't use the term there.
I can word it however you would like.
I
I
would
will
like
go
you
back
to-
through the order of conditions and see if there was anything exciting.
Yeah. Okay, I move that we reissue the certificate of compliance for 21 Western Ave.
Second,
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I, Courtney,
aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Jacob,
Aye.
Kurt. Did I hear Kurt?
Oh, aye. Sorry. Aye.
I guess it's getting late, Matt.
Aye.
Okay, so we reissued 21 Western COC. Okay. Did we deal with all the administrative approvals?
There were just,
Yeah, I mean, I read,
They were just updates of existing, previous ones for the installation of septic systems.
Okay, so we already dealt with that. There's no warrant that I know of. Is there
No.
anything else? No minutes yet?
Nope.
Okay. Anybody have anything else?
nope.
Okay, before I adjourn, So Matt, I don't know when you printed out your copy, whether you had some other comments that you want to send back that I could incorporate when I sort of try to redo this thing for our next meeting.
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Then you could either send me a document, then I can look for the comments there and try to incorporate that. And I can talk, I know where to find you if I need help. Okay. In that case, if there's nothing else, I move to adjourn at 8:55.
Who wants the second?
Second.
Oh, wow, we get two for the price of one. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I, Steve,
Aye.
Courtney,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Kurt,
Hi.
Diego,
Hi.
we did it. Okay, fairly short meeting by our standards. And we made some,
Gonna be a new trend, right?
oh yeah, right, give it a break, whatever.
We're gonna be so efficient.
Yes, that's our goal.
That'll be our new fiscal year goal.
Oh yeah.
I can't think of any other upcoming.